We just had Elena Delgado, aerialist.
Elena Delgado on, and let's talk about it, Mary.
Oh my God.
There's
I had so many feelings.
Well, start. I want to hear a feeling.
Well, there was one point where I almost teared up when she talked about how pregnancy rescued her from like body hatred.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I really empathized with that.
Yeah.
And I mean, for different reasons, you know.
Right. Or you and I have the consensus that we liked our body when pregnant. And there was a part of that with Elena. I mean, there was her fear too.
That's a good point. It was different.
I think the three of us objectively had pretty easy pregnancies. People have terrible pregnancies.
Yeah.
People have obviously unwanted or complex or emotional or, you know, whatever. But yeah, I think particularly interesting given someone who's had a complex relationship with her body that, you know, and I think you and I relate to that, like, and I don't think that's universal with all women.
Well, yeah. And I guess what I wondered was like universal is a sort of like, I think it's very difficult, if not impossible, to be a woman in our present culture and not have complicated and negative and toxic feelings toward your body.
Yeah.
At least at some point throughout your lifetime.
Correct.
And so I think pregnancy, no matter how it does it, whether it's like for her, it was fear, for you and me, it was more like, oh, I actually feel good for the first time. But like pregnancy kind of, it just like erupts all of that in this way. Like it just throws everything up into the air. And I think that's a really interesting thing.
What's the hardest relationship you've had with your body, or like the hardest time you've had with your body?
Well, I had like a bad eating disorder for almost a decade.
Yeah.
So that was pretty bad.
That was bad. That
but I think what's interesting to me is that I like, you know, quote unquote, got over it and like had a relatively healthy-ish relationship with food and exercise for like, I don't know, another decade. But it was getting pregnant that made me realize that like I still always had just been tolerating like even when I was like, oh, I'm healthy now because I don't have an actual eating disorder. It wasn't like I felt good in my body. It was like this like thing I tolerated, like, fine, I'll live in this thing that I sort of like, you know? And I was like, oh, that's sad. Because when I was pregnant, I actually took care of myself. I was like, oh, I'm going to eat well because I want to eat well. And I felt good. Like you, I felt, I just, even when I wasn't showing, even when I didn't have a bump, I knew I was pregnant, and that made me more gentle with myself and like more forgiving. And I like and I don't just mean in sort of a conceptual way. Like I would look in the mirror and not be like, oh, I wish I looked different. I would look in the mirror and be like, I you know, I don't know. I have a baby growing in me. So like, I like this outfit on me right now. Like there wasn't some ideal version of myself. I wasn't.
Yeah.
I just like relieved myself of that burden. And I'm not sure why I did that. Like, okay, so I found out I had gestational diabetes when I was about, I think, 24 weeks pregnant. And so I had to not that dramatically. It's not like I was eating terribly, but like I was eating a lot of ice cream. And I had to really I basically had to cut out sugar completely. And I had to make sure I always had protein if I had a carb, and I couldn't have that many carbs. And I found it so easy. It was so weird. I'm like, I spent so much of my life, you know, like dieting or being mad at myself that I wasn't dieting, or thinking, oh, I should, you know, have better self-image so that I just naturally eat more health. Like there was all this, there's like a lot of failures logged.
Yeah.
But when it was for the health of my fetus, it was like the easiest thing on earth to do. Yeah. It was like, oh, obviously, like, yeah, I'm not going to eat sugar. And that I thought that was so interesting. Even at the time, I was like, this is so interesting. Like, why is this so easy for me to do it? Since I'm not doing it, it was just not doing it for myself. I was just doing it for this little guy who I had to take care of.
Yeah. Yeah, I found that a lot, like particularly with my second pregnancy, I was like less interested in things that I would have like with both, like I love wine, and I definitely was just like, this doesn't taste good. And it's probably maybe biologically my body protecting me from poisoning my child.
Right.
But you know, there would be that where it just felt like, no, this tastes better. Like this just feels better, I think, because like we're a team. It's interesting. I was thinking about it because I keep saying like I have body acceptance. And I think for the most part, like I actually like my body. But I did this thing the other day that's like super effed that I've been doing since I was a preteen, when I was a little chubby and I did have body issues. And I wouldn't say I have an eating disorder, but I would count fat grams and try to eat less than 8 fat grams a day. So that's not like healthy. But I remember it's even before then, in 5th grade, my mother, because I was heavy, being like, you need to shop in the junior section, which is crazy as a 5th grader. And we all on the playground would be like, I'm in size 10 jeans. I'm in size 12 jeans. And I was like, I'm in size like 5, 6 jeans. I got to the point where size was always important, even though I know that sizes vary. And so I would cut the sizes out of my pants. I remember one time, I was cat sitting for my friend in 6th grade, and she was a little heavier like me. And I was certain that she wore pants that were the same as mine. And she kept saying she wore a smaller size. And so I went, when I was cat sitting in her house, in her drawer and started pulling all of her jeans out of her drawer. And then they came home. And I was in her bedroom with like all of her jeans around me when I was supposed to be taking care of her cat. It's that bad. Okay, so recently, like within the last month, I bought a pair of pants that I needed for the next day. And I bought them in a size larger than I typically wear. And they fit fine. Like sizes are weird. They looked good enough. Yeah. But I wore them with the tag on because I was like, I don't want to own pants in this size. Went to the store and I was like, do you have the size below? And they said, no, we have the size 2 below. And I went in the dressing room and squeezed into them. And I was like, these are the ones that fit better. And I brought them home.
Because you wanted
because I did not want to have the larger size pants.
Yeah.
And this is me like at my best body acceptance.
Yeah.
And I wore them yesterday and I was like, these are a little tight, Kate. Like you just bought a pair of pants.
Right.
Because the one was like, wow, you actually went down 2 sizes. I was like, yeah, I know. It's crazy. I'm just like never this, with the larger size.
Yeah.
So I'm just never an X.
Real.
And she was like, oh, like looking at me like, this is not your size.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so real. It makes me sad.
It makes me super sad. It does make me super sad.
I really related to the part of our interview with Elena where you said that you still get nervous about what's happening in here. Like now I'm motioning around my pelvis area. Yeah. First of all, I still don't have a pelvic floor.
Yeah.
Which is a term I did not know existed until after I lost it.
Yeah. I hardly knew you.
Yeah. I feel like that piece of my physical life now causes me to question my identity a lot more than I would have thought.
Because you don't have a pelvic floor? It's not funny. I mean, it's funny, but not funny. Yeah.
It is. Pelvic floor is like a little bit of a funny term.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I was a runner before I had babies or a baby.
You want one of mine.
And yeah. And I'm running again.
Yeah.
Finally.
You ran a 5K?
I ran a 5K recently, and I run a couple miles 5 or 6 times a week. And when I do that, I pee on myself. I mean, I just do. Like, I just don't have a pelvic floor. But basically, I had to decide at some point, several months after having Finn, like, do I want to run again, which I love, or do I want to not be embarrassed that I pee on myself when I run? And I decided I would rather run.
Wear black tights.
Yeah, not having a pelvic floor is it just reminds me like, oh, you're not in control of what's happening down there.
It's funny as you were saying that, I'm like, body this, body that. So as you know, I had an emergency C-section with Fritz. An emergency C-section is very terrible. Mm-hmm. It is an emergency surgery where they slice open your abdomen. And I was not prepared for it at all because I never thought I'd have a C-section. And I could barely get out of bed the first day. In fact, I maybe couldn't get out of bed. I was on a catheter. And then I would go to the bathroom, and walking in the bathroom was like the most painful thing. And I was bleeding, and you're just like a mess after labor. And anyway, so my first shower was at the hospital. And I went, and I didn't have a shower in my room. I love you, New York City. So it was a communal shower on the floor.
Wow.
And I went, and I hadn't seen my body yet. I was afraid. I wouldn't look at the scar. I was afraid to look at the scar. I wouldn't look down. Had never been afraid of my body before. And I went and there was a full-length mirror and I looked quickly and I was like, this is grotesque. I mean, I had like I was bandage and I looked 4 months pregnant and there's whatever. And I just was like, wash as fast as you can. Like I couldn't stand not having clothes on. I was that repulsed by my body. And I was at NYU Langone and there's a large Jewish population and an Orthodox Jewish man opened the door. And I felt so, first of all, I was mortified to the communal shower. I don't know why I was going to the communal shower, but I was like, I felt worse that it was a man of faith who I knew wasn't supposed to be seeing this. So then I felt guilty. Like I was like, I'm sorry you've seen my naked body. Also, I'm sorry you've seen my grotesque naked body. And then I was like, I'm sorry anyone saw my body because I don't want to see my body. Like it was terrible, terrible, awful. But what stuck with me from that, like ultimately, I healed, obviously. And, but what stuck with me is that I had tremendous fear with my second pregnancy about childbirth that I didn't have in my first one. And I was really pushing for a VBAC, a vaginal birth after cesarean. And my doctors were just like, it's really dangerous. You risk perforating your uterus, which is, ripping your uterus because you have a scar on it. And they pushed and pushed and pushed. And ultimately they made me get induced when I went past my due date. Yeah. And there was it was a fight. And I almost, when I got to the hospital for my induction, I sat in the bathroom and almost ran and stayed because I was worried that my insurance wouldn't cover my childbirth if I ran out on a scheduled surgery. That was why I stayed. Wow. Like I was literally like, well, I could be making a $50,000 mistake.
Wow.
I mean, I'm so lucky to have the kids that I have. I'm sure that is goes without saying. Yeah. But my birth experience was
traumatic.
Yeah. It just made me doubt my body in a way that I've never doubted my body. And I haven't been able to shake it.
Yeah.
And I feel very lucky that I can nurse because that's a way that my body feels maternal. Like nursing is very important to me kind of for that, like that physical primal connection with my baby. Yeah. But I think that's why I miss it because I didn't have it. I mean, truly not with Iris. I didn't have one contraction with her. I walked into a room and I was like, please cut me open and bring a baby out. And they did. And she was great.
Yeah.
And is great. It continued.
Was there anything else Elena said that you kind of wanted to unpack?
I feel like there were 10,000 things.
Well, her nursing story was basically my nursing story.
Yeah. But yours was that bad?
Yeah. We had a tongue tie surgery within the first 3 weeks. I saw 4 lactation consultants. I went to an infant chiropractor, which I never thought I would do when he was 3 weeks old. Who was the person who made it work? The infant chiropractor was my angel.
What did they do?
He did craniosacral massage on Finn, and that is what got him to latch within a few minutes. But by that point, he was 3 weeks old, and I had been doing the feeding him for 45 minutes, but he wasn't really getting much. So then he would need to have a bottle, and I would pump. So it was very similar to her, to her story. After the infant chiropractor, Dr. Vella, love Dr. Vella, it was much better. But speaking of body issues, at 2 or 3 months, I was like, I need to finish losing my baby weight.
Yeah.
My husband was going on the keto diet, so I also went on the keto diet, which made me lose 8 pounds right away and also dried up my supply. So I stopped breastfeeding because it didn't come back. And then when I went off keto, I gained 10 pounds back. So it was, don't go on keto if you're nursing.
Oh my God.
Is the takeaway. Yeah. And I did have guilt about that. I'm like, I was so eager to be back to my pre-pregnancy weight.
Yeah.
That, I Googled, is keto safe for breastfeeding? But let's be honest, when it said yes, the first hit, I don't even think I checked the source. I was like, great, it's going to be fine.
What is keto?
It's where you don't eat any carbs. Your body goes into ketosis. Yeah, so I think while I was like, it's safe while nursing, I think a bigger part of me was like, I'm just going to assume it is because I really care more about losing this weight than I do about continuing to nurse.
Well, and the truth of the matter is you can Google anything plus pregnancy or anything plus postpartum and find the answer that you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you can be like, are these like horns that are growing out of my head a symptom of pregnancy? And someone's going to be like, yo, I grew horns when I was pregnant.
Right. And it's all in your phrasing too. You're like, is it safe? And everyone would be like, it is safe. But if you want it to be dangerous, you're like, is it dangerous?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Like, it is dangerous. When she was talking about how it's like she's just now getting back into, like she's like, I pushed myself really hard to get ready for that first show.
Yeah.
And it was a year and a half after he was born. I was like, oh, because I'm 6 months out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I should be a little nicer to myself.
Oh, that's like the biggest difference between kid 1 and kid 2 for me is that like as you know, because we talk about it all the time, I took my first trip at 10 weeks and like fell apart.
Yes.
But I think it was really like, this is my identity. I need to know that I can be this other person.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I know I can, but like, is it better for me and my baby and my family and my other kid to do the show or do the whatever? And a lot of the time it's not.
Right.
Thanks so much for listening. And we'll be back here with more I'm Still Here. I'm Kate Tellers.
And I'm Mary Adkins. See you next time.
Coming up next.
If you're an artist, you cope through art.
Yeah.
So like the only way I can process everything is by being like, this is a story.
Next episode, comedian Carolyn Castilla.
Get creative. Go to imstillherepodcast.com to find links where you can rate, review, and subscribe.
I'm still here.